kick it off with introductions.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you all for joining us today. My name is Litav Langley. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm fortunate to serve as the Assistant Vice President for Access, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in our Division of Enrollment and Student Services at Western. That means that I work very closely with the Disability Access Center, our Office of Multicultural Student Services, and our LGBTQ+ office, which is called LGBTQ+ Western, to really advance the holistic, thriving, and academic success of all Western students with a focus on students who hold one or more marginalized identities. I did think that it would be useful for me to take a few minutes to give you an overview of some of those services, and then of course can dive into more detail when we circle back with questions in a few minutes. And I'm here with my colleague Josef, who will talk in a bit about the Disability Access Center specifically. So I'll focus my remarks now on the Office of Multicultural Student Services and LGBTQ+ Western. Within the Office of Multicultural Student Services, we have the Ethnic Student Center, which is a coalition with supportive advisement for over 20 ESC clubs that all have a variety of cultural heritages that they are celebrating and learning about in community with one another. We also have our Black Student Coalition, which is a resource center and locus of support for Black students at Western. And we have the Blue Resource Center, which is a support and resource for students who are undocumented or who are from mixed status families. Within LGBTQ+ Western, we likewise have a variety of programs. Both of those offices are located primarily in our Multicultural Center, which if you haven't visited Western in the last few years, you probably haven't seen. It is a new space that opened in the fall of 2019 and is located on the top floor of our student union. Our Black Student Coalition and our Disability Outreach Center, which Josef will tell you about, are located elsewhere on campus. In terms of the programming that we do, I certainly don't want to give you a laundry list of everything, but to highlight a few programs that I think provide some good insight into where we focus our energies. We want students to feel welcomed and connected to one another and aware of various support resources from the time they start at the university. And so we do a number of focused orientation programs. To be clear, all of our services, including the orientation programs, are open to all students. And center students with marginalized identities. So we have for orientation a program called You Belong Here, which welcomes students to our services, gets them talking and engaged with one another and really starting to build that community that we understand is so important to their success and retention at the university. And then we engage them in some mini workshops to give them a taste of the kinds of learning opportunities around exploring one's own identity, learning about others' identities, creating accessible club spaces and classroom environments when interacting with peers, interrupting bias incidents, building networks of community care and support. So that is our overall orientation program. We also provide orientations for disabled students through the Disability Outreach Center, Queer Orientation, which centers LGBTQ+ student resources, and Welcome Black is hosted by the Black Student Coalition. And then we have a number of programs that continue throughout the academic year. One is that we do a number of Heritage Month programs, and those aren't just kind of one-off, come and then it's done, but rather a series of events throughout any given Heritage Month. We have Multicultural Center community lunches that are open to all students that happen in our Multicultural Center, or MCC as we call it, every Wednesday. And those are a time for students to meet one another, to connect with faculty and staff who are in attendance. And we always also have a particular topic that we're facilitating conversation about. So today, for example, October is, among many other things, Disability Employment Awareness Month. And one of our staff colleagues, along with some student employees in the Disability Access Center, are going to be leading a conversation at lunch today about knowing your rights at work. We have a number of other student support services that are regularly in our spaces. So academic advisors, financial aid, math tutoring support, writing support, spend time in the Black Student Coalition, in the MCC, and in the Disability Outreach Center regularly. We have social support programs that also connect students with other academic support resources. Those include What's the Tea with the BSC, the Black Student Coalition, Trans Tea. I didn't know we had such a proclivity for tea at Western, but apparently that theme is coming up in some of our programming. We have a gender affirming care team at the university that coordinates gender affirming care on an individualized basis for trans students, whether that care is social support, information about document changes, medical support, and mental health. We have a coordinated team there. And we do a number of different trainings, a Black speaker series, and a leadership retreat. So that's a not too quick, but relatively quick overview of some of our services. The Multicultural Center and our other spaces are really lively, welcoming spaces where, not this early in the morning, but in a few hours, many students will be around studying together, planning different club events that they're doing, and chatting with us. So that's that overview, and I'll turn it back to you, Ashley.
Wonderful. Joseph, would you want to go next with introductions?
Of course. Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Josef Mogharreban. He, him, his. I have the pleasure of being the director of our Disability Access Center here at Western, this office provides academic accommodations to disabled students. We also provide services within housing, within dining, all programs and services that Western provides. We are involved in. We have the distinct honor of serving a pretty decent sized population. About 19% of all Western students comes through our office, which is a fantastic problem to have, and for us signals a reduction in stigma around a disability, a pretty healthy help-seeking mindset of our students, and this population is very diverse, both temporary and permanent disability, and permanent disabilities are accommodated. And I'm always thinking about who we're missing. So this office has grown significantly in the past 5 or 6 years, and there's no plateau in sight. And so we're looking forward to embracing that challenge of serving as many people as we can. our process starts with an online application that's available through our website, which I'll put in the chat in just a minute. Oftentimes we receive questions about what our documentation requirements are, and I'm very happy to say that is really that is really dependent on the individual. We do not want to make our process more onerous than it needs to be, and this aligns with the ADA as amended in 2008, and so we would encourage students to come with or without extensive documentation, and decide on a individual basis what those needs are for access and eligibility for our services. If the DAC is the business end of our operation, we also have the Disability Outreach Center, as Litav mentioned, which is our community space that is staffed by students, and for all of Western. We have a great space, which is comfortable, which is really designed to be used by a variety of needs, and that's intentional. We see the need for that peer-to-peer engagement as being a part of college, and being a part of what it means to feel connected to this place. And so there's a lot of different services that this office can provide, and I'm looking forward to hearing what if there are specific questions or concerns of the folks that you're working with that I might be able to shed light on. So thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with your students.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Nick.
Good morning. My name is Nick Sanchez. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the director of our Veteran Service Office here on campus. Our population usually falls between 500 and 600 students a year, probably a little less than that each quarter, but at any one time we're processing around that 450 to 550 student benefits. For those who are less familiar, I guess, with the veteran experience in education, while you serve, you obviously earn GI Bill benefits, and our staff is kind of the compliance-based piece of our work, is really helping to process those benefits for all the different types of students we have. Our population is kind of split into two distinct groups, one being our veterans and the others being what we call dependents. And those who are not aware, a dependent is anybody really who's under the care of and or sharing benefits from a veteran sponsor. So most times in our case, that's going to be a child of a veteran, but often can be a spouse of a veteran as well. And so those are our two populations we serve. They can be quite different from each other, where our veteran population really averages about 27 years old, and our dependent population really is more traditionally aged, coming oftentimes straight out of high school, whereas, the overwhelming majority of our veteran students are transfer students. I guess what you know about our office, we're staffed with 3 permanent staff, a director, and 2 what are called school certifying officials, who are the 2 people who really are at the tip of the spear in terms of executing those benefits and getting people paid on time and keep them on course to graduate. We also will employ about 10 to 15 student employees, which are federal work study. Right now, we're split about half and half between dependents and our veterans in our work study staff, and they also help do much of the heavy lifting in terms of moving all of that data across different platforms to get people paid and get people graduated on time. What's kind of nice is we do run a student lounge here. It's fully stocked with food and TVs and all of that type of stuff. But what really happens, it becomes a bit of a hangout spot, but those work study become almost peer advisors for all students who walk through the door, where they have questions about what classes to take, how it benefits, when do I get paid, how do I make friends? And that's what it becomes, is kind of this social hub and study hub. Because one of the very really consistent things I hear with both dependents and veterans is they really struggle to connect, make new friends, and or transition out of military service or military culture. Even those dependent students, I think going to school in a place like this can be quite different for them, and they have trouble connecting. I hear that just very consistently. And I often hear, 6 or 9 months after folks being here, oh, I didn't have any friends until I started coming to the VSO or until I started working here. And it really helps folks to connect in a sincere way. That's your basic rundown. I'm happy to field any questions, but I'll let us move on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sarah, I'll pass it off to you next.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sara Wilson. I'm the Executive Director for the Student Success Initiatives Unit here at Western. And my unit includes the Academic Advising and Student Achievement Center, which I know Megan just shared quite a bit about in her earlier comments, as well as Career Services Center. We have a small SSI ops team that supports our IT and communication needs across our unit, as well as supporting our Navigate platform, which is our online advising platform, which is one of the places where we can actually isolate information about incoming cohorts of transfer students and look at retention risk. And then the other program in my area is the Western Success Scholars Program. That is a newly institutionally funded program that started as a grant back in 2019 to support former foster youth and unaccompanied homeless youth, as well as students who are passport eligible for Washington Student Achievement Council funds are supported through that office as well. And I think it would be good to add with that those that office is now recently co-located within our Viking Union, along with our Office of Off-Campus Living, which provides tremendous support to our transfer community, given the majority of those students live in our community environment rather than on campus, as well as we just hired a new resource navigator, and they will be co-located in that area as well. And I use she, her pronouns as indicated on my screen there. And I'll stop there since I know there was a lot talked about of my area already with Megan's time. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then lastly, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Ashley. Hello. I'm happy to be here. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. My name is Jacqueline Johnson. I go by she, her pronouns, and I am the Woodring School of Education's embedded therapist. So I come from the Counseling and Wellness Center, which is mainly what I'll be focusing on today. But for those of you that are joining Woodring, you know, you may see my face in certain orientation rooms, providing some mindfulness training or just talking about how to access my services. Okay, so can I share my screen? Am I able to do that? I think I have the access. Oh, it's disabled. The disabled participant screen sharing.
Do you want me to bring up a particular website? Perhaps I can do that for you, Jacqueline.
Sure, that would be great. So it's just, I feel like it's easy to see a visual when I'm going through some of our services. So you could just do cwc.wwu. Oh, I should be able to share now. Okay. 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 All right. So this is our homepage. Can everyone see this? Yeah. This is our homepage for the Counseling and Wellness Center. So right away, you have our location and then our phone number. And after if it's after hours, so after like 6 Monday, Wednesday, or after 5 on the opposite days, you can press or say 1, and there is what we call protocol. So if you have any sort of crises going on after hours, you are still able to access someone for support. If you are hoping just to get right in, have a same day drop in consultation with somebody, either over the phone or face to face, you can go ahead and click here, and it will bring you to a form that allows you to schedule in with a clinician at the Counseling and Wellness Center. So we have those same day drop ins should always be available. And otherwise, you can just call into our office as well. So with your student health fee, you have access to individual and group counseling services. We also offer couples counseling services. We have a substance abuse prevention specialist, and we also provide some workshops around substance abuse, specifically a cannabis workshop, alcohol workshop, and both of those are just to reduce use or reduce harm. We also have an event that goes on called Dryish January, and also a THC break. We have various group therapy programs. Some are support-based, so our Family Ties is a support group for folks that are dealing with some familial issues. Build Your Self-Confidence is a skills group, understanding self and others, more about interpersonal connections. We have 2 Build Yourself Social Confidence groups because it was so popular. We have an anxiety group. We have an art-based support group for survivors of violence. Staying Afloat, which is a skills group for practicing healthy coping strategies for intense emotion. We have a Divergent Minds group and a depression group. And for the first time this year, we are offering a Living with Loss group that will be coming up in winter quarter. And then in the spring quarter, there's After the Silence, which is for individuals that have experienced interpersonal violence. We have, as already mentioned, a gender affirming care team. And we have a survivor support advocate. So again, survivors of violence, we have somebody a confidential space where you can talk with that person just kind of to get to know what your options are. And that clinician also runs the art-based group. And we also help students access off-campus therapy. That can sometimes be a challenging process. So we want to, make sure everyone knows they can also kind of learn how to navigate their insurance and access off-campus support too. We have various wellness workshops that are available throughout the year. They change sometimes year to year. So right now we have a workshop that is not like a group. You just access the tools, but it's for folks that identify as neurodivergent. That's going on right now. We have a growing wellness workshop, which is like nature-based experiential strategies just for your own well-being. And then we have a coping with grief and loss workshop. We also have, I believe these were mentioned already, but it's just some community check-ins. We have the Native American and Indigenous student support, Chill and Spill, and also the QT-POC check-ins. So drop-in space for queer and trans students of color, just to find support through connection. And those are just, they're kind of like a casual caring space. And then we have a lot of different information on our website for, if you wanted your own visuals. We have wellness worksheets talking about time management and self-care and good bed hygiene and that kind of thing. We also have an outdoor wellness program, which students are paired with another peer mentor, and they make the schedule to go out and connect with nature. So it could look different from one dyad to the next. This could just be hiking. It could be getting out on the water. It could be skiing, but just a way to kind of link you with another individual that also kind of, has that peer mentor support training and has that shared interest of connecting with nature to enhance mental health and wellness. Okay. So yeah, most of these links up above are going to kind of bring you to the same information. So I think that's all. Stop sharing. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much for those introductions and some overviews of your programs. I'll now pass it off to our attendees today to ask some questions and get them answered. So feel free to raise your hand and I can either call on you or you can go ahead and unmute. And then for our panelists today, if you're comfortable answering questions over email and stuff, I want to drop your email in the chat in case we don't get to all questions today. That'd be wonderful.
Well, I can ask a question that would be helpful to hear your perspectives on, I think, which is what advice would you give transfer students who are transitioning to Western in terms of finding support and getting connected, and how can advisors potentially connect students with those resources?
This is Litav. That's a great question, Jean. One thing that may seem simple to us, but I think it can be challenging for any student who's new to the university, including transfer students, is come and talk with us. There are so many colleagues at the university, both staff and faculty and student staff, who are really excited to support transfer students as they figure out where they're going to fit in and connect most at the university. And so even telling your students something as simple as, hey, I heard this guy Nick talking, and you might want to go and check out the Veteran Services office and chat with Nick and see, if he can show you around sometime, or swing by the Multicultural Center. It seems like they have free food on Wednesdays, right? Really encouraging students to put themselves out there a little bit and to know that doing so really will be a benefit. The other thing I would say is it takes time, right? I think if many of us think back to our own college experiences or any other big new situation we've been in, you don't always find the folks you connect with most right away. And so being patient, recognizing that it takes time, and that if one is struggling in any way, whether that's around social connection or academics, or finding folks who culturally you connect with, or the food that you want to eat, there are folks here to help. And so doing that outreach. And Veronica, I see your great question. I'm going to let my other colleagues respond to Jean's question, and then I'm glad to jump to that.
I think my answer would be,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. I think my answer would be somewhat similar. I think and I'll add just a little caveat because I've been dealing with this question quite a bit around just connecting. And I think we're lucky enough that you have to come into our office in order to process your benefits. And I kind of have it that way purposefully. So you can't do it on the phone or online completely. You do have to come in and execute some pieces of the orientation and whatnot. And then we offer services in here weekly, like mental health counseling as a group. The Kelly, who is not here today, kind of has helped to host that on Fridays for us, which kind of gets us together with a little more intention. And then I borrow from a lot of services across campus to get people out experiencing really fun stuff or useful things that colleagues across campus have. But the piece of advice I've been giving to students, because what I hear so often is, I have people I know, I'm connecting and I know them, but I'm not actually like becoming friends. And I think what's really been really interesting is it seems that everybody's waiting for somebody else to do the invite. Let's go do a thing. And I think that's a big piece of advice is join a club that has programs or be the person who invites. Like, let's go do something. Because I think that everybody is in this standoffish social setting. Everybody's waiting to be asked to dance and not doing the asking. And that's been my advice is like, hey, everybody out there is feeling, many people are feeling the same way you are, which is I know a lot of people, but I'm not genuinely connecting. Be the person who asks, hey, do you want to go do X, Y, Z? And like Litav is saying, put yourself out there a little bit. And it starts with walking through the door, but it's followed up by taking some initiative and taking a little risk and getting out there and doing things. But it sounds simple, but it's really what my observation has been. People have really struggled with that here, especially I think since quarantine, so to speak.
I would just jump in with maybe two or three other pieces. This is Sara. One, I think to build on what both Litav and Nick have said, the importance of destigmatizing the use of services and really normalizing that as resources that students are paying for, and we want them to utilize those services. We may do some intentional outreach, but a lot of it is taking that initiative. And I think sometimes what I've experienced with transfer students is they assume because they've had an experience at another institution that they have it all figured out, but every institution is different. And so really encouraging them to learn the institution that they're at. The third thing I would add specific to my area, I see names on this call that I know. In the past, pre-pandemic, we were offering advising and registration in person for students before their first term. And that was an optional experience for transfer students while it was mandatory for first year students. Well, we went all virtual during COVID, and we learned a lot from that, and we will stay virtual, which has actually increased pretty tremendously the participation rate of transfer students. So continuing to encourage them to participate in that activity and to engage with the Canvas course that prepares them for that. And I do believe I have some updated retention numbers for transfer students, and those who have utilized some of the services in my area from last year's incoming class actually were retained at rates better than the general transfer population, and in particular for first generation students and Pell eligible students. So I think getting in early and getting a good start is really important. And I want to make sure there's time for Litav to answer that other very critical question that was out there.
Before we move on, this is Joseph. I'd like to add something to that in my experience, both personally and professionally, I've concluded that that college and succeeding in college takes a village. I'm not I'm not under the illusion that accommodations alone will will do everything for every student. And one thing that my office is very good at is connecting students to other Western services. There is a refrain that is spoken in disability services offices generally, that says we can guarantee access, not success, and we need to be able to find the resources that can fill in the gaps and lead to the best successful outcomes as possible for students. So even if folks are wondering if disability services offices will be able to assist, I would encourage you to send folks our way, because we can find those other those other wraparound services that really supports students in the ways that they need to be supported.
I'm going to turn to a previous question, which asked in the chat, how have your departments responded to the effects of the ongoing genocides that so many students and staff are affected by in many ancestral lands? And I can respond to this, and I think for any of us on this call, our response can be focused on support for students, because that's really the area in which our work focuses. So the support that we're providing for students, of course, varies depending on student needs, and the interventions and supports that we've done are kind of multi-tiered. One is at a very broad kind of macro level, excuse me, communications to all students about available resources with specific information about how to access those resources, because we know that students don't always retain that information when it's first shared with them. They retain it when they really need to access the services. We have held in recent weeks specifically, and we have done this at other times, in past academic years as well, some decompression and care spaces to connect in common humanity. Those are often led by, whether ones this year or in prior years, a staff member from the Office of Multicultural Student Services and someone from the Counseling and Wellness Center. It's a place for conversation and really for de-stressing as well. Simple art activities, that kind of thing. We support individual students, of course, and have done some really intentional outreach to specific student clubs via their club leaders. Connecting students, for example, in recent weeks, we've had students who've needed to take a short-term leave of absence from school, or who've just needed some additional flexibility from their faculty members, given the tremendous stress that they are under. And so coordinating with colleagues in our Office of Student Life to communicate with faculty members so that isn't students bearing all of that weight themselves, and asking faculty for some additional flexibility. We've also offered to clubs, and I know some clubs have made use of counseling and wellness services coming particularly to club meetings to have conversations and provide some culturally relevant support from the right counselor in the Counseling and Wellness Center. And we know that not everything can be provided by counseling and wellness. And we've had a lot of students, I think, in our offices having conversations. So those are a few of the ways, but I would say really kind of scaffolded from that individual support of students to club support to broad communication with all students.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think we have time for maybe one more question if anyone wants to drop something in the chat, or if no one does have any other questions, if there's any final remarks any of you on the panel have before we sign off today. I know sometimes sitting in silence works to bring up questions, but not always, because maybe you just did a wonderful job answering everyone's questions. And I know that you all dropped your emails in the chat too. So if people do have questions that pop up maybe later today or in the following weeks, definitely feel free to reach out to anyone who participated today so we can get those answered. But then I will pass it back off to Jean as we go into our breakout sessions. But thank you everyone for joining us today.
Take care,
Thank
everyone.
you.